They succeed, they fail, they succeed, they fail. Such is the plight of the season-long NBA fantasy enthusiast. But yesterday, we succeed. Oh yes, yesterday we succeed. Almost all of the pickups, of the draft picks, whatever, yesterday was like this beautiful whirlwind of delight. It doesn't happen all that often. It really doesn't happen all that often, where almost every player that you have on your fantasy team is dunking at the same time. And it happened yesterday. It was this magical confluence, an 11-game card, too. So you had a lot of guys in your lineup. It would have been really easy for somebody not to succeed. But basically everybody that we talk about on this show, with perhaps the possible exception of like DeAnthony Melton, who I had benched anyway. So after all of his recent poor games, just crushed it. It was awesome. The night finished, and I looked at my teams, and you guys know I have a bunch of fantasy teams, and I'm guessing a lot of you have multiple ones too. I looked at my teams, and I was just like, how is this possible? Because even all of the guys you'd put like in the 80 to 110 range, where you're like kind of crossing your fingers on a day-to-day basis and thinking, will I get a good game out of this dude? Will I get kind of a middling game? They had good games too. And what about the recent hot pickups? Mark Williams, good game. Zach Collins, good game. Do I bring up the fact that Kelly Olynyk is romping again? Good game. Colin Sexton, good game. Even the maybe guy, Matisse Thybulle, who we called a speculative ad to see what he was going to get to do in Portland, he dunked too. Everybody dunked yesterday. Slow-mo on a minutes restriction, dunked anyway. That was wild. It was super. All of my head-to-head teams got off to great starts yesterday. I'm leading in both of my cash head-to-head leagues after day one. All of my roto teams moved up in the standings with the exception, I think, of one that just stayed static. That's crazy. I have 6 cash roto leagues, 2 cash head-to-head leagues, and then we have the industry league. There's one more I'm forgetting, and I don't know what it is. That means I probably haven't checked it in a while. But the fact that 5 of 6 roto leagues yesterday went up. So I'm hoping, the reason I use this as the preface to the show is I'm hoping that means it was similar for all of you guys. Since we sort of work through the season together, we end up with a lot of the same pickups, a lot of the same draft picks, because you do listen to this podcast typically regularly to some degree. So hopefully you guys went to sleep last night also feeling happy, because I feel happy. I feel happy right now. I'm just rumbling along. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's Fantasy NBA Today. It's a Sports Ethos presentation. Hello to all of my recorded listeners. Hello to all of my live YouTube listeners that are throwing questions in the chat room as we speak, and of course are liking and subscribing the video on YouTube. To those of you over on the recorded side, don't worry, this show will always be done recorded. Fear not. There will be days where it doesn't happen on YouTube, just due to scheduling and other weird conflicts through the off season. I don't know if it's going to be on YouTube every day. That would be fun, though. I'm going to try to do it over there. But if you're listening on the recorded side, certainly now during the season, come hang out with us live for future shows. Sports Ethos is the YouTube page. It's youtube.com/sportsethos. I try to do this show at 9 a.m. every morning if I can. And then we've got the Waiver Wire show with Eric. We've got the weekly lineup show with Steve and Joe. We've got Brewski's Breakdown on Wednesdays. Our YouTube page is sweet. Joe's doing his baseball shows live this year more often, which is also amazing. Some of you watching live, you saw his question or his comment on cookies here on your screen. So just, you know what? I'm in a good-ass mood today. I can say that. Fantasy teams are dunking. It's mid-50s and cloudy, which I actually enjoy. I know most people in Los Angeles like it a little bit warmer than that, but kind of opens my eyes, wakes me up a little bit. Let's do this thing. We got a big card to recap, so let's just dive right on into it. Oh, you can follow me on Twitter at Dan Bespris, DanBesbris. I'm also trying something out right now where the show is being live streamed into Twitter Spaces. I still don't fully understand how that works. but I know it's happening. So some of you right now are likely watching on Twitter. Hi. I don't think I can interact with you. At least not through StreamYard, which is the service we use to put these things out. So, my kids are watching those Toy Story shorts on Disney Plus when they're waking up in the morning. Forky asks a question. So I got both my kids going, I don't know. That's kind of how I feel about using technology these days. Old man Bespris. I'll be 40 in like 3 months. Woof. I know. I'm not that old, but geez. You feel it. You feel it in your limbs. Doing a freaking show with a heating pack on daily these days. Anyway, Charlotte beat Atlanta 144-138. This was a regulation score of a basketball game, and everybody had stuff. When your two teams combined for 280 points, there's probably going to be some fantasy lines. The dig into points on these games, I believe, are Sadiq Bey, who started for Atlanta and played 21 minutes, but there was no John Collins. I don't think he's going to start when Collins is back. Bey will likely be the sort of wing gunner off the bench for the Hawks. Bogdan Bogdanovic will be more of the guard-flavored gunner off the bench for the Hawks. It's a good pickup for them, but they might want to consider defending somebody. Charlotte shot 63% for the game. Gordon Hayward is someone that I've kind of bounced around on lately on the podcast. He was so awful in October, November, December, and January. And he just showed little hints at the end of January, beginning of this month, of starting to look a little bit better. I think you can add him in head-to-head and play him daily right now. I think you can add him in Roto, but you'd be stashing him on your bench. So don't drop anybody of value. If you're looking at it from like a true rank standpoint, for Hayward, even while he's been better lately, he still hasn't been quite good enough. Dude's shooting 50% over the last 2 weeks and 96% at the free throw line, and he's still ranked outside the top 100 over that stretch because there just isn't that much other stuff he does. But as he's slowly coming around here, I think it's worth maybe getting in front of it. Or if you're in a league where someone's just been playing him the whole season, fine. Maybe they get a couple of weeks of Hayward being a little bit better, but that dude's been sinking their team up to this point, so don't feel bad about it. Also, Mark Williams, 15 and 5, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 30 minutes. I love everything about that. Low usage, just dunking near the rim. Made most of his free throws, which is a great sign. Steals in the blocks, we know he gets. No notes, no complaints. That was a beautiful thing. I do wonder, and I don't know when Charlotte has their next back-to-back. Do they play again tonight? No, they don't. I think their next back-to-back is after the All-Star break. Yeah, they host the Spurs tomorrow, and then they're off until after the break. I am still curious because I don't get too deep in on this one because suddenly the show's going to end up going too long. You remember when Mason Plumlee was still in town, and once every 3 or 4 games, Nick Richards backed him up instead of Mark Williams. And sometimes it seemed like it lined up with a back-to-back. It wasn't always that way, but it seemed like it. So I do wonder that if Charlotte has a back-to-back, do they flip Williams and Richards for that one game? Even if they do, I don't really care because Mark, at this point, would still have to play 15 to 20 minutes in a backup role. And as a starter playing close to 30, I mean, yeah. Spurs and Cavs. Nothing on the Cavaliers side, which is nice. We can basically just gloss over them. Although Jarrett Allen has been really good lately. It took him a while, I think, to develop that chemistry with Donovan Mitchell, would be my guess. But over the last month, he's been a second rounder. And that's kind of what we've been waiting for all season long. So he's starting to move his way up the board at long last. Nothing you're doing with it because he's universally rostered, but still good to see. Over on the San Antonio side, though, there's all sorts of stuff going on. Let's just start at the bottom of the board with Jeremy Sohan, who had a bad ball game yesterday. We've talked about him a lot on the podcast as someone who doesn't have a defined fantasy game yet. He scores, he rebounds, he passes, but the steals and blocks seem to come and go. The threes come and go. The percentages pretty much just go, and the turnovers kind of come and go. So at least at this juncture of his career, and he could change a lot because he's still a super young dude, but right at this moment, Sochan profiles more as a points league type of target. Or if you wanted to extend that a little bit to someone that is better suited for head-to-head leagues where you have a particular build. If you're punting, one of the percentages, perhaps. I think he's worse at free throws than he is at field goal percent. Admittedly, I don't have that number right in front of me, but I can pull it up while we're talking. 69% at the foul line, 45 from the field, so the 69 is worse, but neither one of them is good. Steals and blocks are kind of meh. There's nothing that's jumping off the page. It doesn't hit that many three-pointers. That's why. When people are like, Dan, why do you describe someone as a points league guy? It's not necessarily because they're just bad at the percentages. That's the first thing that you look at for someone being good at points league. It's basically, are they pretty good at just a couple of categories, but not like hyper elite? If you're hyper elite in a couple of categories, you can still have value even in a 9-cat. But if you're only just kind of like sort of good in them, that sort of takes you out of the running for 9-cat stuff. I think that's probably what he is the rest of this year, is a guy who's fringy for 9-cat, makes more sense in weird head-to-head builds, and makes even more sense in points leagues. And frankly, that actually extends to his teammate Malachi Branham, who also struggles with percentages, also struggles in particular categories. Branham probably a little better on the steals and threes side, but not as strong in rebounds. Assists, you'd think he might have a little bit of a leg up, but they have other guys that are doing the passing for that team these days. So Branham, almost the exact same conclusion for me. He's going to score. He fit your weird head-to-head build or your points league team, but 9-cat, Keldon Johnson is a hold. He's also been more, points and weird head-to-head build so far on the year, but he's been better lately. He's actually been inside the top 100 after that brutal shooting slump he finally pulled out of, so he's fine. Zach Collins is also fine. He's soaking up most of the starters' minutes. Isaiah Roby did get hurt in this ball game, so that meant Collins had to do a little bit more. Charles Bassey picked up 13 bench minutes. He's worth monitoring. We've seen Bassey actually post fantasy numbers in only 18 to 20 minutes per ball game, and he might get there if Roby has to miss any time. But Collins is obviously the guy you're looking at. He's played really well in 2 of his 3 games since Jakob Poeltl got moved. I still don't think he caps out as high as a Mark Williams or even a Colin Sexton, but it is looking more and more like Collins is going to be in that, what did we say before the trade deadline? Probably more like a 90 range kind of dude. I don't think you can expect 3 steals every game. I don't know that you can expect 57% shooting every game, but he has sort of a nice variety to his fantasy game, and that's cool. And the last player I want to mention on the Spurs, because they've sort of rebuilt things here in the short term, is Devontae Graham, who has done a lot in 2 of the 3 games he's played with San Antonio. And those games have corresponded to the ones that Trey Jones has sat out. In the game that Trey Jones played, Graham still got 24 minutes and was still actually pretty involved. I think he had 2 steals and 2 blocks. And he's he's basically running point for that team when he's on the court. I am intrigued by Devontae Graham. We've seen that when he is more of a usage guy, which he wasn't on the Pelicans, and he very much was on Charlotte, he can pile up fantasy stats because he's just chucking away from three-point land. Like he could legitimately average 3 3-pointers the rest of the way. He gets steals, he gets assists. He again is very much a punt field goal guy. So to me, if you're in a head-to-head league, you probably adding Devontae Graham. If you're punting field goal, you're definitely adding Devontae Graham. If you're not punting field goal, he probably doesn't make it inside the top 100. Roto, he's going to be very difficult to use, but if you add him, you could deploy him when someone's out. So, if Branham's hurt, you could play him. If Trey Jones is hurt, you could play him. Honestly, even if Keldon Johnson's hurt, you could probably play him just because there will be more shots available. That's the Roto play. And then points leagues, I think he's a must-roster guy because points, threes, assists, steals, that's a very fast way to rack up stats in a points format. Philly blew out Houston. PJ Tucker left early with a calf injury, and new acquisition Jalen McDaniels was actually the big beneficiary there, which, of course, You guys know where I'm going with this. This means DeAnthony Melton is probably a drop. I know he's starting, but if he's not playing well, he's not going to see a ton of minutes. And now that they have McDaniels, they have another option for a guy to step into a bigger role when a starter or other sort of like feature piece, a 30-minute guy, we should say, goes down. Previously, when any of the 30-minute guys got hurt for the Sixers, like 7 of those minutes went to DeAnthony Melton. Yesterday, we saw the PJ Tucker minutes went to Jalen McDaniels. And so if Melton doesn't have that wide open path to just getting to do more, and now he specifically needs either James Harden or Tyrese Maxey to be hurt to have value, he becomes an injury stream instead. I'm going to give Melton 2 more games. Personally, if you guys want to know what I'm doing personally with my team, I'm going to hold Melton for 2 more ball games. But if you don't, I ain't mad at you. I think that in all likelihood, his run is probably over unless Maxey or Harden has to sit out a ball game or 2. And I think we can blame it on Jalen McDaniels. Curse you, Jalen. Who himself, by the way, probably won't have a ton of value on a night-to-night basis. And, you know, he's just not going to get any shots. So that's a problem there. Utah beat Indiana 123-117. All good things here also. Colin Sexton, 18 points, 6 assists, 2 steals. He shot the ball better. He's a go. Kelly Olynyk, who we told you guys to add as soon as he started to ramp up after his injury. He's just rolling these days. 18, 10, and 2. 4 threes, a steal on great percentages. If you look at the season numbers for Olynyk, they're going to not really tell the story on him because he had these really nice runs. And then he had the long run coming back from injury, and he had like the 4 games where he was in foul trouble. If obviously you can't dodge the foul trouble games, but you could dodge the injury games. And if you pull those out, he's a top 85 play on the year. That's very much a guy you need to be starting. As far as Taylor Horton-Tucker goes, that's the one I'm seeing a lot of questions about on social media these days. 7 points, 7 assists. We talked about it yesterday that his role has increased and he's running point a bunch for Utah. He is, the inclination would be to say he's similar to what we just said about Devontae Graham, but he has a very different fantasy game. Taylor Horton-Tucker doesn't hit threes. Both of his percentages are kind of bad. Field goal will be better than Devontae's, but free throw is going to be quite a bit worse. And that's one of the things that Graham does that floats him, is that his steals are pretty good, his threes are very high, and he's also a chucker, which for fantasy is a good thing. For reality, you know, it doesn't make a team all that much better. But for THT, kind of running point here. I'm not adding him in Roto. I don't think that there's enough of a secure job plus stat set together to use on a games cap format. Head-to-head, specialist appeal, basically assists, and generally he'll get you a couple of defensive stats. And then points league is the direction that I would lean more. You have a lot of these young guys that are coming into prominence now after the trade deadline that don't have good percentages. So yes, there are more guys right now that are popping up on the points league radar than the category league one. Just the way, you know, the ebb and the flow of things. The category league guys were Williams, Collins, and Sexton, and then some other ones that are sort of popping up here and there. We'll get to Thybulle in a minute. Meanwhile, for the Indiana Pacers, they finally let Isaiah Jackson play a little bit. He got 26 minutes, and he was sweet. I know he missed some free throws here, but 4 blocks. He had 3 of them in the first quarter alone. Yeah, Miles Turner was out. So, no, you're not adding until they effectively say we're letting the young guys run, but it was cool still to see that, you know, Isaiah still got it in the tank. Knicks beat the Nets 124-106. Josh Hart, 28 minutes off the bench in this one. He's just going to keep playing more and more and more because Tibbs loves him. He was a plus 25. Quentin Grimes was a minus 3. RJ Barrett got hurt, although not badly. To me, it just feels like a matter of moments until Hart is starting over Grimes. But effectively, it doesn't matter right now. Honeymoon ended quickly in Brooklyn, didn't it? They're going to struggle to score. Simple as that. They don't have anyone with superior gravity. Spencer Dinwiddie is the closest thing they got. But if he's not on, then they're just, who's going to do it? Who's going to create? They don't have any other creators. I'm still starting Dinwiddie. I'm starting Bridges. I'm starting Cam Johnson. I'm starting Nick Claxton. But you can see how things might start to come unraveled a little bit. Of course, it might mean that they need to play Ben Simmons more. I don't think you need to hold on to him to find out. I think you can drop him. Frankly, I think you can drop everybody else on Brooklyn besides those 4 guys. And that includes Dorian Finney-Smith, who is going to play a glue guy role. But again, like, he needs somebody to create gravity for him to be wide open. Nikola Jokic still playing basketball with the easy mode setting. That dude is crazy, man. He is the MVP. I know they're going to probably give it to someone else, but Jokic is the MVP. That dude is unbelievable. Did you know, I saw this stat yesterday, and I couldn't believe it. Did you know that Nikola Jokic has only shot under 50% from the field this year? Listen, we're breaking this down by game. On the season, obviously, you can look at the numbers and go, oh my God. Dude shooting 63% from the field on the year. But forget that. He's only had 1 game this season where he shot under 50% from the field. 1. Maybe that'll be the trivia question. You guys could just look it up. It was Utah, October 28th. You know, he's just rounding into form. Remember when Jokic was like the number 6 player in fantasy for the first month of the season? Yeah, that didn't stick. He's number 1 now, and there really isn't anybody close. Again. Wow. That's so amazing. That's such an unbelievable stat. Under 50%, 1 game this year. And he's not like he's just in there dunking every day. What an incredible feat. He is, of course, to no one's surprise, the largest positive impact field goal percent player in the NBA. Ahead of Zion, who knows when we'll see him again, and then Nick Claxton and Jarrett Allen and Rudy Gobert. I mean, these are the guys that are behind him, the guys who only dunk. Jokic is crazy, man. I continue to feel like he's playing basketball like it's a video game, and he's just set it on, like, let me win mode. It's so wild. Anyway, Vlatko Konchar had another decent ball game filling in for Aaron Gordon. I don't have the stones to play him. I do have the stones to play Bruce Brown. It feels like they'll just rest Jamal Murray through the All-Star break. He was a game time decision that he ended up sitting out this one. I think Denver has one more game before the break. I have to admit, I didn't look to see if they have another one. But if they do, I don't know why they would rush Murray back. Not that it's a rush at this point, but they have a 5-game lead over the Grizzlies in the West. The Nuggets are 40-18, second best record in the NBA. There's just no reason to play Jamal if they don't desperately need to. And they don't desperately need to. So, anywho, that should give you another good game of Bruce Brown before the All-Star break. On the Miami side, no Tyler Hero. We knew Kyle Lowry was out through the break because his knee is fully you-know-whatted. So that meant Gabe Vincent was a pretty easy stream to play, and he was decent. Fouled out, actually, Gabe did in 34 minutes. He might have even done more. Max Strus was the other choice that I had on my streamer board. I didn't play Strus, and he had a good ball game, but, you know, whatever. Like, we knew he had a good chance to it. Jamari Booyah. Is that Booyah? I admit I don't know how to pronounce that last name. I would say Booyah because it's more fun. But Jamari had a decent fill-in game here. I'm not adding him. Caleb Martin was another guy that I was looking at, like, couldn't he? Not enough usage. Too much reliance on all the 3-and-D coming together. I think if these are the same guys that are out in the next ball game, you still stream Vincent, and then Strus again is your kind of coin flippy. Do we play him? If you need threes, you probably do. You can't rely on Strus to get 7 boards and 4 assists in his next fill-in game. You're just looking for 3 or more 3-pointers from him. And then anything else would be a little side bonus. Jonathan Isaac played 13 minutes. I think they're going to try to play him in the back-to-back, which is really interesting. And that's why the minutes were likely lower, because he got up to 14 in the previous one. He'll probably go 12 or 13 again in the next one. This has been the world's slowest ramp up. I mean, I said even once he got back, I thought it would take him 3 or 4 weeks to get up to 20 minutes. Even I didn't think it was going to be this slow. And I thought I was being extremely conservative in my estimates. But yeah, maybe they try to get him up to 20 minutes out of the break. It feels like that would be a pretty good leap, though. What do we do with Jonathan Isaac? Roto, you can keep stashing him like he's injured, because once he gets to 20 minutes, he would be worth using. Head-to-head, no. And frankly, he's probably just more of a, keeper league, if you can keep him at a cheap price for next year kind of guy. Because maybe we squeeze out like the last 2-ish weeks, 3 weeks of the season of startable level Jonathan Isaac. But even that, to me, is sort of up in the air. Otherwise, no big news here out of the Orlando side. I think Mo Wagner profiles as kind of an interesting schedule stream at the very least. Chicago, they look bad these days. Boy, the Bulls should have blown it up. They're the 11th seed. They've lost 4 in a row. The sky is falling. DeMar DeRozan got hurt here, injured a hip. I don't know. We'll see if he plays in the next one. We saw last time that when one of the big studs was out, it was actually Alex Caruso that took a giant leap forward, but he was actually hurt for this ball game too. So may have to play this one by ear a little bit on the Chicago side. New Orleans hanging on to beat Oklahoma City. This one was interesting for a couple of reasons. Number one, Brandon Ingram is on a serious scoring tear these days. So thank goodness he's back for fantasy teams. But Josh Richardson in his first game with the Pels, this is first or second? Maybe this is the second one. 10 points, 2 boards, 3 assists, 5 steals, 2 blocks. He had fans in attendance. We had family and friends in attendance, I should say. Yeah, I mean, you can't expect that this is going to happen every night. I'm not adding Josh Richardson. At the very least, you can toss him on a watch list. I'm holding on Herb Jones. He had some foul issues early, just sort of didn't have it going, but he floats his value with steals. Hold on Trey Murphy, who didn't shoot the ball well. We knew the opposite side of the coin was coming at some point for him, but he had a steal and 3 blocks. Larry Nance, JV, those guys both probably belong on waiver wires right now. I know this is kind of a hot take, but Jonas Valanciunas, he's more of like a 130 to 150 range guy when Nance and Brandon Ingram are both healthy. There was no CJ McCollum here. I think he'll probably be back for the next one, or at the very worst, right after the All-Star break. So if you wanted to stream Jose Alvarado, I wouldn't totally stop you, but it's not a great look. And Jose, you'll get a couple of assists. You'll usually get a steal or 2, maybe. It's a low upside stream. But again, like on the JV front, I'm pivoting back here. I just don't see a path for him inside the top 100 as long as this team is mostly healthy. Roto, you could spot play him if Ingram is sitting on a back-to-back or something, or if we find out Nance has a sore or whatever, then you do it. But I don't, head-to-head, I don't know how you toss him out there every ball game right now. It's fine. If you want to hang on, I get it. He's a big name, but this is why we were super low on JV this year, because there were just too many guys squeezing him for minutes and opportunity. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl came back for the Thunder, played 18 minutes, didn't have an impact really on almost anything. Kenrich Williams, Jalen Williams saw fewer minutes, but he wasn't an ad anyway. He was a watch list guy. You can probably bump him off of that. Now, Kenrich, decent ball game here, but he's no more than a schedule play. And then I think Robinson-Earl probably does ramp up as he gets his legs underneath him, and we'll see if that changes anything. But for now, no. Minnesota beat Dallas 124-121. Slow-mo is on a minutes limit right now. I don't know if all of you guys saw that news as it flashed by yesterday. It was sort of like under the radar stuff with slow-mo. I don't know if I think they're going up. I think his minutes are going to trend back up. This is all to keep his back as healthy as possible, but he's so critical to what they do. He actually was in the lineups that were losing yesterday's ball game. It's just a weird, I'm looking at this game and it's just all sorts of weird. Here, let's forget the reality side. Look at it from a fantasy standpoint. Kyle Anderson belongs on fantasy teams. If he's healthy, he's an absolute start in all formats. There you go. Easy peasy. But what I am worried about is, are they going to rest him? Are they going to keep his minutes checked at 24 for a while? I want to see them get back up into the high 20s, low 30s, because then he can really slam dunk on people. But, we'll take what we can get, I suppose. Mike Conley, 12 points, 9 assists. He settled in quick, didn't he? All's well. Christian Wood back up into the 20s in minutes for Dallas. That's a good sign. I didn't think he was going to stay at 18 forever. What I am worried about with Wood is, as Maxi Kleber works his way back, does it really cap him out? Because they're liking what Dwight Powell's done on defense lately. They have options. Wood was better in this ballgame for what the Mavs were trying to do than Powell was, but Powell was better in the previous one, or whatever they were sorting through there. And I think this just means that Wood's minutes are going to bounce around a little bit. He's not a drop. Far from it. I got some questions about whether they should drop Christian after a couple of low-minute ball games. No, he's absolutely not a drop, but he is not the mega hot Christian Wood we saw for, 3 weeks in January. You guys all call me nuts when I tell you guys certain dudes are sell high. It's not that I'm mean. It's not that I don't like certain players. It's that we've seen this type of stuff before. Anyway, also of note, Josh Green, who we talked about a little bit during the pre-show on YouTube, 6 points, 4 boards, 4 assists, and a steal. He's a hold, but I need you guys to understand that he's not a big upside fantasy play. Okay? He's a hold because he's playing massive minutes, and just being out there for that long means you're going to fall into 3 or 4 rebounds a game, and you're going to fall into 2 or 3 assists, and you're going to fall into a steal. And when you combine that with some good shooting games and some bad shooting games, he profiles as someone that probably hangs out right near the edge of the top 100. You're going to find yourself having the same discussions about Josh Green that you've had about Jaden McDaniels all season long, which is, can I wait out the slow ones to get to the better ones? Like, Jaden was good yesterday, had one of his better games in a while, but these are guys that are going to bounce between 90 and 120, and back and forth they go. Good game, they go up. Bad game, they go down. Head to head, they are holds. You're not going to find someone that gets that type of opportunity other places, and you'll have worse guys on your team, frankly, that you can turn into streaming slots. Roto, I won't know when to deploy them. High-scoring games, maybe. You deploy them against really bad defenses, maybe. But even that doesn't always work out. But Josh Green is a hold in most formats because he's playing freaking full starters minutes right now. Almost no other reason. And then Portland, this is an absurd shooting display. Blazers hit 23 three-pointers, 17 of them in the first half. And everybody hit them from everywhere. Dame hit 8. Sharp hit 3. Thybulle hit 4. Nas Little hit 3. Trendon Watford hit 2. The Lakers were leaving certain players open beyond the three-point line. They were giving them kind of the Russell Westbrook treatment and just daring dudes to shoot. And every single one of them made the shots, which is, okay. Sometimes the strategy just doesn't work. Maybe it's not the greatest strategy on earth. Like, they left Trendon Watford wide open. He is shooting 49% from 3 this year. But that's on 0.8 tries per ball game. He really just doesn't shoot them very often. And then he was like, what, screw it. I'm going to step into this. And then Thybulle, I believe, tied his career high with 4 3-pointers. Which brings us to Matisse, by the way, who, look, dude is a career 33%er from downtown. He's not awful from 3. He's not great, but he's not awful. He's an ad. To me, he's the news in this ball game. Oh, by the way, before we come back to Thybulle, I want to run through the quick things here. Malik Beasley, 6 3-pointers. 4 of those came in garbage time. Okay? He only hit 2 when the game was competitive. He's going to be a 3-point streamer probably the rest of the way, but it's not going to be more than that. Same story for Jared Vanderbilt. 6 points, 6 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals. He was actually really bad in this game. Tried to do some weird stuff on his own. It didn't fit great. I think he'll actually have a better role with the Lakers when LeBron does come back because of how they can build the team differently. But in this one, it just didn't work. So there were no obvious ads on the Lakers side. I think you're going to end up seeing the Lakers with a lot of drops. LeBron, AD, and D'Lo are the only Lakers that are going to end up on rosters at the end of all of this stuff. But we should talk Matisse Thybulle because he is the most talked about player across the fantasy space overnight, and for good reason. 14 points, 6 boards, 2 assists, a steal, 3 blocks, and 4 3-pointers. Understand that Matisse Thybulle hit 5 out of 9 shots in yesterday's ball game. Do you know the last time Matisse Thybulle took 9 shots in a game? Not this year. It wasn't this year. This dude does not like to be involved on offense. He averaged 2.5 shots with the Sixers this year. And last year, when he was playing closer to almost starters level minutes, he only took 4.5 shots per game. But what he did do in 25.5 minutes per game last year with Philly was put up 2.8 defensive stats, 1.7 steals, 1.1 blocks. That is the appeal of Matisse Thybulle, who I believe with Portland can play 25 to 30 minutes per ball game. He's not a points league ad because steals and blocks aren't worth enough in points leagues to float him. He is, in my estimation, a really intriguing specialist, especially this time of year. Your head-to-head league, if you need a steals and blocks bounce, he's the kind of guy that could actually put you over an opponent in possibly 2 categories in a given week. Like, there are times that when Thybulle played full starters minutes last year that he could rack up like 10 steals and 10 blocks in a week. You might get 0 for 2 games after that because, law of averages and so forth. But he belongs on rosters, I think, even if you want to sit on him for a game or 2 on the roto side just to kind of see what they're going to do with him when Jeremy Grant comes back or whatever. But to me, the upside in the defensive stats is so absurdly high that you kind of have to do it. You kind of have to. And the Warriors beat the Wizards 135-126. This game, I always have to make a regular Nintendo Wizards and Warriors reference. If I don't, I would feel like I've let you all down. Daniel Gafford, 28 minutes again. Still no Kyle Kuzma, though. I don't know what Gafford and Avdia are going to look like when Kuzma returns. I like the upside with Gafford more because big man stats are just sort of easier to pile up, where Avdia is going to need to do all the across-the-board stuff, so he really does need the minutes more than Gafford does. But it's possible they both fall off when Kuzma returns. Kendrick Nunn played 29 minutes yesterday. I'm not doing anything with that. But yeah, I mean, hold on to Gafford for now and hold on to Avdia for now, but understand that it might come to an end. I have higher hopes for Gafford than I do for Avdia in terms of who might have fantasy value the rest of this season, but I'm also a pragmatic fellow, and it's possible that neither one of them does. Klay Thompson might play on the second half of the back-to-back we're hearing, which is really interesting because he's been a top 50 guy after a slow start, and this takes a lot of the down stuff out of Klay if he's suddenly not playing in back-to-back. The Warriors need him. They're 1 game over 500. They're the 9 seed, so they have no margin for error, and Steph is out for a couple more weeks, so you can kind of understand why they're doing it, I would think. What does it mean for Dante DiVincenzo? He played 25 minutes yesterday, had a really nice fantasy line, 17 points, 3 assists, 2 steals, 5 3-pointers, 9 shots. I mean, he made most of them. And that's, to me, the fear with Dante. This was hot Dante. Jordan Poole wasn't very good, so other guys got to do more stuff. Andrew Wiggins had a bigger ball game. Klay got 21 shots. Is there enough daily for Dante DiVincenzo to be a roto games cap play? I think you can play him on head-to-head because, again, you balance it out. He's probably going to be somewhere between 80 and 130 on every given week. And if you get him in like a 3 or a 4-game week, that'll play on head-to-head. You think about everything kind of in terms of how does it play over a week. What I'll also say is on the head-to-head side, if they don't have a great schedule coming up, he's a guy you probably could move on from. Does that make him a schedule stream? I think he's a little bit above that, where like you could ride through a scheduling part that maybe isn't perfect, but isn't terrible. Like a 3-game week, it would still almost play, but you kind of ride out the 3-game week to get back to the 4-game week, where a true schedule stream level guy is someone you wouldn't even ride out a 3-game week to get to a 4-game week. You just want them for, 3 games in 4 days and then gone. For Dante, if they had like 7 games over 2 weeks, I would probably play it. Roto, I don't think I would do it. You guys know me. If I'm on the fence on the Roto Games Cap side, then I'm not going to play him. This is that brief moment during the show when I pause and note that, hey, there are 60 of you now, which is really, really awesome. But very few of the 60 of you have clicked the like button on this video. What are you doing? What are you doing out there? I need to see that thumbs up go up. It's at 16 right now. 60 of you are watching and only 16 thumbs up. Unacceptable. I don't know how many people are watching on Twitter. I am kind of curious. While I look at that, this is when I need you guys to go click the thumbs up button. And if you haven't... Oh, Jonathan Isaac was just ruled out. He was off the injury report. Now he's back on it. So he's resting. It doesn't matter. You guys don't care. I don't know why they even teased us with that one. But also, hit the subscribe button. I don't know how easy it is. Again, I don't know what that looks like on your end of things. I think it's relatively straightforward. But please do take a second and subscribe to our amazing YouTube page that we're all busting our butts for. I'm really busting my ass here to try to get these things up daily. And it's carving into all of my free time to do it, but hopefully you guys appreciate that. So please do click like and thumbs up while I am... What was I doing? I already forgot. Oh, I was going to see if anybody was watching the Twitter feed. Is anybody watching the Twitter feed right now? Not really. Excuse me. I don't know why I'm doing that. Maybe people see it after the fact. Maybe it's just too long. Who wants to hang out with me for an hour on Twitter? I don't. What else was I doing here? Oh, you know what? I wanted to put a quick tweet out. Excuse me. To let everybody know that is Tuesday preview and then Q&A time. Join for our 10 minutes. There we go. Now the tweet is out. I know this is bad TV, but I don't have a producer, so you guys have to sit with me on it. Oh, no, I lost like 3 of you because of this stuff. If you remove the daily audio pod-only uploads, I'd subscribe happily. We did. I don't put those up unless I skip the YouTube. This is Roy. Yeah, we don't do the audio-only ones unless I'm not doing the video show. So on whatever it was, Thursday or Friday of last week, I don't think I did a video show. Is that right? One of the days I didn't do a video show last week, so I did the audio-only upload that day. But that should be the only one. I mean, if I can check, but I think... Yeah, that's the only one since January 16th on the audio-only side. So I hope that addresses your concern, my good friend Roy. All right, let's get back to business here. All right, nightly preview time. What's coming up tonight? Boston at Milwaukee. Do I have anything to watch here? Bobby Portis participated in some parts of practice for Milwaukee. I don't think he's playing in this ball game. It was 3-on-3, so he's not even at 5-on-5 yet. He's the guy to watch to see what happens when he comes back. Does his job get squeezed a bit by Jay Crowder? Maybe, would be my guess. Probably worth a stash at this point in case he does get back to that kind of 90 range stuff he was doing. And then we also know Portis is a huge winner anytime they sit Giannis. The Bucks are 39-17. They're 2 games up on the Sixers. They've won 10 games in a row. At some point, Giannis is going to get a breather here, and that would be kind of the Portis day. Let's see. What do we got else going on in the card coming up tonight? Orlando. Oh, we just found out Jonathan Isaac is out, so not that anybody really cared. Boston has everybody on the injured list right now. I skipped right over them. Jason Tatum, I believe, is doubtful with a flu. Jaylen Brown is still out. Marcus Smart is still out. Robert Williams is questionable. Grant Williams is questionable. Malcolm Brogdon, I believe, is back. Brogdon, Derek White, Al Horford should go pretty big if all those guys sit. If Time Lord plays, he'll go pretty large. If Grant Williams plays, he's probably worth a look in this one also. And then Peyton Pritchard probably gets to do a little bit, depending on if anybody else sits as well. Boston is ripe for what we're calling the fantasy one-night stand right now. Toronto, I am interested in Gary Trent Jr. If he plays, does he knock Precious Achiuwa out of the starting 5, or does he knock Jakob Poeltl out of the starting 5, or neither? Poeltl's a start, by the way. He would have played probably close to 30 minutes if he didn't foul out in their last ball game. And He looks invigorated to be playing for a team where stuff matters. Sacramento, nothing. Phoenix, TJ Warren makes his debut. That the only question there is, who does that take from? And hopefully we get Kevin Durant on the other side of the All-Star break. I desperately need him in my 30-deep team. Washington, they're on the back-to-back here. We'll see if anybody rests. We'll see if Kuzma plays on the back. This is by the way, there's a really hard back-to-back. Flying from Golden State to Portland. This is a brutal one. Wizards are not going to have a whole lot in the tank, but we'll see if they can hang in there for a bit. Portland is also on the back-to-back. I'm happy that we get to see, especially if Kuzma plays, we'll get some data points on Gafford and Avdia there if Kuzma plays. For Portland, we're going to get another data point on Matisse Thybulle. Yes, it's likely to be a data point without still Jeremy Grant, but I don't know. It just feels like Thybulle is going to grab that small forward spot that was vacated by Josh Hart because he's better than Cam Reddish, and he probably fits better what Portland needs to do, which is stop somebody every once in a while. The Warriors on the back-to-back. Again, it sounds like Klay Thompson might play, but I'm interested in Dante DiVincenzo. And then for the Clippers, we're going to get the Eric Gordon and Mason Plumlee debuts. And we'll find out if that means that Ivica Zubac is a drop now. And that is your Tuesday show. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. Again, if you're listening over on the recorded side, come play with us on YouTube for one of our upcoming live shows. If you are with us here on YouTube, stay tuned post-show for the question and answer session. Once again, I'm Dan Besbris at DanBesbris. I am actually demanding that someone watching on YouTube or listening take a second right now and go find me on social media. I spend entirely too much time on Twitter, but it's mostly to just get you guys information as fast as humanly possible. So I really do hope to see you over there. And again, is at Dan Besbris on social media. At Ethos Fantasy BK, the best damn fantasy news feed on planet Earth. We want to get him to 10,000 followers before this season is done. Can we do it? Only you can tell, or you can help, certainly. Have a wonderful Tuesday, everybody. Back at you again tomorrow morning. We'll try to get that show going at about 9 o'clock, give or take a few minutes. So long. All right, question and answer time, friends. Okay, let's scroll on up to the top. Here's what I'm going to do, too. I'm going to bring up the player rank page so you guys can see the names as we're flipping through them here. There's the top of the board. Okay, questions. Oh, I forgot to make my face smaller. I don't know if you guys could see the box scores during that show. Sorry. Dan, I'm having trouble in Roto on who to play because my bench got decent by getting good players like KJ Martin, Zach Collins, Mark Williams. Do I start to look for a 2-for-1 before the deadline? Yeah, I'm all about that. I think a 2-for-1 is a great idea, especially with buzzy guys right now. Mark Williams and Zach Collins in particular, I think you could package and get something pretty good, like maybe target a top 70. It's possible that Williams and Collins could like maybe Mark does go 70 by himself, but in my estimation, if you can get someone here, I'll scroll down to this range. If you can get someone like a Jeremy Grant for those two guys together, or Time Lord is an interesting name. Andrew Wiggins, who's starting to play better, is an interesting name. Maybe you can get Jamal Murray while he's hurt for those guys. He's been coming on. I don't think I would go with Melton because he's trending down. Scotty Barnes, he's been good lately, but so that might be a tougher one. Klay Thompson would be an interesting target if you package those guys. Terry Rozier's been rolling. There's a lot of guys in that range that to me are trending up that maybe don't have as much buzz as the guys you just picked up. I love that idea. If the Mavs sign LaMarcus Aldridge, yeah, he worked out for the Mavs, and Maxi Kleber comes back after the break, what's going to be the wood roll moving forward? I think similar to what you saw yesterday, where he's guaranteed about 17 to 20 minutes per ball game, and on a good night, he can push up into the mid-20s. Hey, by the way, if you guys have questions, throw them in the chat room. This is the time. I'm going to go through them as fast as I can. Do you think Okogie and Torrey get their usual playing minutes with TJ Warren playing today? No, I think it goes down a little bit. I'm afraid to use those guys anyway. I don't know. I mean, I have trouble buying that Josh Okogie just magically turned himself into a fantasy superstar because we've seen him play big minutes before and it wasn't there. And then Torrey Craig, he needs shots. And now with Booker back, he ain't going to get them. I want to trade AD and Kawhi for Giannis and John Morant. Should I? 9-cat. No. Not a chance. Giannis, I mean, I guess you're punting free throw at that point. Was your team built to punt free throw? Because that's what you're getting. I know. You could get way more than Giannis and Morant for those two guys. Aim higher. Thybulle over Herb Jones? I think I actually like Herb as long as Zion's out for a while here. Herb is like Thybulle, but actually scores every once in a while. I like that this is happening in the chat room. Joe was talking about cookies. Richard's talking about baseball. Better flyer, Thybulle or Wiseman in a points league? Wiseman. Do you think Kyrie is a sell high? No. I think he's probably a top 15 guy because he's been the number 2 behind Kevin Durant before. This is not going to be that different for him. Kyrie's situation didn't change all that much. In fact, the moment to sell high, and none of us really knew it, was going to be when KD went out and Kyrie had like 2 massive weeks. And then he asked for a trade. Dan, 40 is not old. I'll be 72 in April and appreciate your help all the last few years. Steve, happy birthday. Yeah, I know. 40's not that old. Just feels it. Feels it. Perspective helps. But things take longer to heal. I'm sure. I mean, I can't complain to anybody who's older than me about that. But like, I sprained my wrist in July and it took to like November to feel better. That's crazy. When you're in your 20s, you can sprain your wrist and you're fine like a day and a half later. Oops, skip the question. Sharp better than Thybulle? I don't know if that's a question or a statement. No, I mean, Shaden had a huge ball game yesterday, but I think I would trust Thybulle more because if Sharp was the better option, they would have just played him before. Yeah, Joker's nuts, man. I don't know how he's doing it. Under 50% shooting in one game. How? He's 58 games into the year. Would you stash Westbrook, Steven Adams, and Kevin Porter if you're locked in for the playoffs? If not, what order first to last? Well, first of all of these guys are terrible foul shooters. So I assume you're a punt free throw team if you're thinking about it. And if that's the case, Westbrook is dead last for me because wherever he goes, he's probably not going to get any kind of role like what he had. The Lakers were shoehorning him into stuff that they shouldn't have been. Kevin Porter would be my favorite among those if you're not punting because he actually has standalone value as a top 100 guy in non-punt formats. Steven Adams is a top 100 guy if you're punting free throws, and then Westbrook, you have to be punting half the stats in fantasy for that to be a worthwhile one. So KPJ over Adams over Westbrook. Please don't mention the Bulls were in shambles. Yeah, you guys are rough right now. Losing to bad teams. The vibes are terrible in Chicago. That was why I had Chicago as my preseason under. That was a bad vibes team. Everything went right for the Bulls last year. That's how they got as good as they were. Mostly because DeMar put up numbers that just were not... He couldn't duplicate. And then Lonzo being out was enormous. Faded the Bulls this year. I didn't put much on that one, though. My big bet was the Kings over, so I'm going to need Sacramento to just collect a couple more wins here so I can go ahead and not think about that one anymore. Who would you rather stream for Tuesday, Thursday? Trey Mann or Torrey Craig? Oh, that's a tough one, man. Because the Clippers have Bones, Gordon, and Plumlee all coming in. Bones and Gordon, they really seem like they put the squeeze on Terrence Mann, not Trey Mann. Terrence Mann and Clippers. I'll go Torrey Craig just because I think he probably plays more minutes. And for me is the only calculus here. That's a tough call, though. If Kuz is back tonight, is it worth dropping Denny Avdia for Sam Hauser? Well, I mean, it kind of depends on what you're trying to do with the picks. Do you want this for more than like 1 or 2 games? If it's just for this week, I'd probably go Hauser because it seems like the entire Boston Celtics are going to sit. If it's for rest of season, I would sit on Denny. Ian Roto, drop Josh Green and or Kevin Huerter for Devontae Graham, Josh Richardson, and or Gabe Vincent. Well, Josh Green and Kevin Huerter, to me, are guys that are going to sit right around top 100. Devontae Graham is a guy in Roto you can deploy when a guard sits, and he'll probably be better than top 100 in those games, but you don't play him in the other ones. Richardson, I don't know when the hell he's going to play. And then Gabe Vincent is very much a really nice stream while Lowry and Hero are out. So, this one is sort of team dependent. I think if you're looking farther down the line, Green is probably the safest bet on the board. In the very near term, Vincent is my favorite play because the Heat have a couple guys out. Herter is also relatively safe. He and Josh Green are probably going to put up somewhat similar numbers rest of season. And then Devontae Graham is more your spot play. Let's see. What do we got here? In need of rebounds and points, is it crazy to trade Booker for Julius? Yeah, you can aim higher, I would think. Where is Julius? There he is. Julius is at 54. And Devin Booker is 37, and a lot of that is him being ramped up also. We know Booker is more a 20s guy. I think if you run rebounds in the 20s, you want points too? I don't know if you could get Domantas Sabonis for Booker. That would be my target. If you get Sabonis for Booker, that's probably the direction I would go. I know Julius is points and boards, but oh boy, those percentages, they do hurt. Other possible option that doesn't really get you as many points would be Jarrett Allen. Bam Adebayo, maybe? You think Booker could get you Bam? I think he might. It's relatively fair. I mean, this is roughly, Bam is at 25. That's roughly where Booker is when he's at full strength. So, I was scrolling the wrong window. Sorry, YouTubers. Zoo and Ben Simmons for Kevin Herter. I know they're all different players, but value-wise, is it a good deal rest of season? Always excess in blocks. Yeah, I think Zubats and Simmons end up as drops, so I would definitely try to turn them into Herter, who is fringy 12 team, but very much a play in 4 teams. Dan, do you really trust Al Horford rest of season 12 team 9 cat? Roto, absolutely. Head-to-head, you're going to deal with rest days, and there are going to be those quiet games and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, he's probably going to be an 80 range guy that takes days off. And he's low turnovers, and everybody in head-to-head punts turnovers. So that drops him out of the top 100 if you're punting turnovers. Favorite Futurama character? Oh, that's a good question. Oh, man. I feel like, nah. Would it be stereotypical for me to pick Zoidberg? If it's not Zoidberg, it's the professor. There's one scene in Futurama, and I know this means nothing to anybody, where, and I don't even remember the plot around it, but the crew walks in on the professor after the professor had just finished having sex with somebody. I don't remember who this was. But, all in his, 1,000-year-old droopy skinned glory. And they all walked in and they have the same reaction, which is like, oh, gross. Oh, my God. And the professor says, oh, yes. And for some reason, that delivery on, oh, yes, just tickled the crap out of me. And I hear it in my head anytime someone sees something gross in life. When I hear someone go, oh, my first reaction is to think, oh, yes. So give me the professor. Good news, everyone. Thoughts on Cat timeline? I mean, I think he's still 3 to 4 weeks out. I wouldn't acquire him. Too scary. Is Bones a pickup? No. We can watch him, but I don't think there's going to be I mean, the Clippers are so log jammed. They have 1,000 capable players on the Clippers. Most droppable player on this punt field goal team, Jabari Smith, Josh Hart, or Kyle Anderson. It's probably slow-mo, because one of the things he does well is field goal percent. Jabari Smith is not a punt there, because that's the thing he does horribly. And then Josh Hart, to me, is just such a safe play. I think it's got to be slow-mo, because he's intermittently hurt, and field goal percent is one of his good things. Daniel McIntyre, great content, just subbed. Yay, a new sub. How are you doing in your leagues? I'm actually dominating this year. Last year, I was kind of fighting a little bit. A lot of my guys that I wanted early were injured last season. This year, my Roto teams are crushing. I'm thinking about my 6 cash Roto leagues, There's one that's a total disaster. That was one that had Booker and Kevin Durant. So, like, most of my important players are missing 2 months in the middle of the year. That team also had... did that team have Kawhi also? I don't know. That team, like, just too hurt. That happens. And then there's one that's kind of mid-pack because it wasn't balanced enough. It's a team that has Dame, Jimmy Butler, and James Harden all together, but I whiffed on big man stats, and now I can't seem to get the right one via trade. That one I'm going to try to see if I can scrape out like third place and get a few bucks. But the other 4 are just powerhousing. In fact, actually, let me show you guys one of my. This is fun, isn't it? I can show you guys this on the screen. Let me show you guys I think the best roto team I've ever put together in my life is in this one public league. And let me put this one up on the screen. I don't get to brag very often. This isn't the recorded pod, so screw it. We're just going to do it here for a minute. Let's see. Which of these screens do I want to share? Is it that one? Yeah, that's the one. Is there any like personal information I'm about to put on the screen? I don't know what you guys can, if you guys can see clearly what that team looks like. Let me move the players up into the active slots. Look at this team. Look at this team. All right, so there's Thybulle. He's an ad. Drew Eubanks is a stream. But the rest of it, well, OG and LeBron are both injured right now. But look at the ranks of this team. 9, 61, 17, 80, 29, 22, 31, 42, 18, 32. I basically like drafted an entire team of first, second, and third rounders. And no one can touch me. I have 84 roto points. Here, let's go to the standings. And look at the next team down. 75! And that team has 22 more games played than I do. This is just one of the most obscene thumpings I've ever put on a league in my life. But anyway, that was just me bragging for a minute. Things have gone really, really well for most of my roto teams. The places where I got Jokic, that's sort of like a cheat code. But, you know, Kawhi's come on midway through the year. The teams where I drafted him in the 3rd round and the first 2 round guys were not hurt. Those teams are doing great. There's one that has like LeBron and someone else that's doing well. There's one that's actually a really competitive league that I'm in with a couple of fellow hoopball or whatever we are now, sports ethosers, that I think I'm going to win that one too. And that one's going really well. Harden, Markkanen, Kristaps, AD, Vooch on those teams. I managed to add Jalen Duren on that team. Michael Porter Jr.'s come on. Jamal Murray's come on. I added Colin Sexton on that team lately. Oubre is hurt for that one. A lot of the guys we targeted this year, Brook Lopez, have panned out. It's really cool when it hits. The miss this year was Keldon Johnson. And even he hasn't been awful after that shooting slump. That's the big miss. Keldon Johnson's the big miss, but like we're all afforded a couple. Usually it's more than one. This year we had like one big miss. It's pretty amazing. It doesn't happen every year. I'm not like coming out here to tell you guys I'm God's gift to fantasy analysis. Far from it. But when you have a year where the stars are aligning and I'm about to hopefully make a bunch of money on roto leagues, knock on something, cross your fingers. There's still, 2 months of the season left. Might as well enjoy it. And I hope you guys are too. I hope you guys got a lot of those guys we talked about during draft season, the Porzingises who have been, first round values, and Markkanen being a first round, and Brook Lopez, second first round value. These guys you could get in the 5th, 7th, 10th round, whatever. The only like massive hit this year that we were not on, that I wish we were, was Nick Claxton. Didn't have him. Wish we did. But can't regret that too much because we had all these other ones. When Vassell comes back, do I drop John Collins, or there are 500 Williamses in the NBA? Delonte, I'm assuming you mean Jalen Williams and not Patrick or Jalen or Kenrich or whoever. Let's cross that bridge when we get there, shall we? One of these guys may fade between now and then. You don't need to make Schroeder a drop. Yeah, he's typically a stream when LeBron is out, but now with D'Lo, that's not set in stone. Absolutely, he's a drop. When LeBron plays, he's not an ad to begin with. When you play Roto, do you really budget the games until the last day of the regular season? I sure do. I sure do. there are always really interesting pickups towards the end of the year that you can use to fill in a few games played. Also, it's good to leave a few games played open so you can see what categories you need to hunt at the end of the year. Vassell was dropped. I have an open IR worth a stash, and how much fab would you spend? 35 out of 100 to stash him. But I'm also a roto guy, and head-to-head, I don't know what the hell he's going to look like come your playoff time. I do think we see Vassell later in February. So he's probably back by your playoffs, but I don't know. Is Maxey and Capella a fair offer for Lauri Markkanen? Yeah, actually, that is relatively fair. It probably gets knocked down. Maxey's been playing better lately, but I think he probably needs to play better a little bit longer, and then you might get that. That's on Tari Eason. I think he's a drop. I think they needed to move forward. I know you've done this many times before, but I plan on showing this clip to a friend. Can you explain once and for all why Roto is better than head-to-head? Oh, yeah, easy. Hey, do you like having your season ruined by your second rounder missing 2 games during 1 week in March? I don't either. Do you know what happens in Roto if your second rounder misses 2 games during 1 week in March? Nothing. He plays again 4 days later, and your team is fine. Roto is fair. Head-to-head is heavily luck dependent once you get to the playoffs. There are ways to go around that. You could have a head-to-head league where, best regular season record gets some share of the pot, or top 2 regular season records get some share of the pot, or you have like a Roto playoff in with a certain number of games, or you have a head-to-head weekly games cap in head-to-head. That's one way to kind of work around it. But in head-to-head, injuries derail a season in 2 days, and that's stupid. I hate it. I mean, I hate it with all of my heart. I had the juggernaut team of the century 2 years back in a head-to-head league. Nobody could touch me in like 7. It was an 11 category league. No one could touch me. And then I lost 6 players during 1 week in the playoffs. Done. If that was a Roto team, barely would have blipped. Do you like the new Yahoo player page display? I didn't notice it. It looks the same to me. Maybe I need a different browser. Should we worry about Jamal Murray's knee? Yeah, a little bit. But, he's been a game time call the last couple of days. I think they'll rest him through the break, and then he'll probably be fine. Oh, Mark Williams. Oh, man. Yeah, don't worry about it right now. Worry about it later. Vassell's not going to be back for at least a few more weeks. You got plenty of time to think about it. Yeah, you are dominating if John Collins and Mark Williams are your worst players. Thanks for the answers. Yeah, don't play games recklessly, man. Use your good ones. And in fact, don't worry about them. Don't worry about what they're doing. In fact, let them pull out in front in games played, and then attack them when they don't realize that they blew games on a category they didn't need. Maybe they've got a big lead in 3-pointers, and they're still playing their 3-point shooters, even though they should be rotating and playing a rebounder or something. Okay, we did a lot of questions today. Tomorrow, we won't be able to go this deep on questions. I have to pick my kid up at school like 20 minutes ago. But we'll do the best we can. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Please like and subscribe on your way out. A few of you did that already. You're the best. And those of you that have already done it, you're also the best. And those of you that haven't done it, do it now. Later, everybody.